From Del Rio, Texas, home of Lake Amistad, your host, Rob Wade. This guy who dives. This episode of This Guy Who Dives recorded live 11 June 2017, episode 175. It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of This Guy Who Dives, and I am your host, Rob Wade, and we've had a very busy last couple of weeks, and it's going to get even busier because we've got a show that we're working on, which we'll talk about here in a moment. The title of the episode is It's a Tough Job, but Someone's Got to Do It, because of the challenges of putting a show together, as well as diving and running a dive course, those kinds of things. And believe it or not, if you're a diver, it's a kind of a tough job too, to kind of juggle all the things that you need to be aware of and keep, as far as skills, keep those up if you're going to have a safe experience diving, which of course we stress a lot on this show, and I stress a lot with my students. But first off, let me hit the first, our first segment, movie reviews. And if you happen to be watching live, I invite your comments on the movies that I'm about to talk about. I'm just checking to make sure our video is actually working. We had to install a new camera in replacement of one that finally bit the dust, and so we're still working some tweaks with it. As you can see, every once in a while you see, and I'm watching what you see out there, you see that it kind of burps a little bit. It has a little glitch in it. I'm not sure what setting I'm missing, but it doesn't. It's the same camera, actually a slightly newer version than the other two that we use for this angle, and as well as this angle. But for some reason, that one's not working correctly. Oh, great. We must have somebody either visiting our humble abode or walking down the street, because the dogs have all gone crazy. You probably can hear that. So, anyway, that's enough, Ronan. If you're going to bark, go out of the studio. You can hear my wife yelling at the dogs. So anyway, we're trying to nail down some challenges with the camera, as well as microphone adjustments. I'm trying to make sure that our audio is working correctly. Anytime you're updating hardware or software, you run into various challenges, and that's a part and parcel of both being a tech head as well as someone who's trying to, keep some decent equipment going for the studio. And Vala wants back up now that she's finished barking at the neighborhood, and so does Grace. As you can see, they keep me literally on the edge of my seat. They all sit back there, and this is typically how I guess I need to find a chair that is much larger than this, much deeper than this, because if I'm in here, at least two of them have to be in here, which is hilarious. So anyway, I digress. So, what is going on? Okay. So anyway, we think we've got most of the hardware and software stuff going here. It's just tweaking at this point. But we did get a chance in the midst of all the craziness with show auditions, etc., to catch a couple of the movies. As I mentioned at the beginning of the year, this was I predicted this was going to be a pretty sparse year for movies to see because we're pretty exclusively sci-fi adventure fans. We'll see the odd people movie every so often, but generally speaking, I'm not. I only want to see science fiction movies or some really good. If you got some good Christian films that come out there every once in a while, they come out with one that's really good quality and excited to see. But sci-fi has been pretty thin this year because of something. For instance, Ben Affleck can't stand him, won't see a movie he's in. So didn't see the Batman versus Superman. I'm not going to go see the Justice League movie. However, we did get to go see Wonder Woman. Now, I got to say, this movie hit it on all marks for me. My favorite superhero movie up to this point was the first Iron Man. Second one was pretty good too, but I just liked everything about how Marvel handled the first Iron Man movie as an origin story kind of thing. I thought it was well done. It was just an amazing movie, and of course Robert Downey Jr. did an excellent job, and I just don't know how they're going to replace him as Tony Stark. I just don't see somebody stepping into those shoes. Now, since most of you probably saw the Batman versus Superman, where we got to see the introduction of Wonder Woman, but this movie is the origin story and is set back in World War I time frame. So this opened up a lot of opportunities for period piece costuming, sets, imagery, and of course the paradise that Wonder Woman and the Amazonians were from. It was just a stunning visual treat from the word go. It was beautifully written. The dialogue was intelligent and yet innocent in some areas where it needed to be. It struck what I felt was an excellent balance in the way the characters were played. Chris Pine did an excellent job, as expected. I think kind of the scene stealer was the actress who played his secretary/assistant. She was a joy to watch, and I actually would have liked to have seen more of her in the movie. But anyway, from the writing, from the cinematography, from the editing, the music, everything was stunning in this movie. This is now my favorite. Wonder Woman is now my favorite superhero movie. I gave it an absolute 10. I would have liked an ending. Well, I probably am safe in telling you the ending. I would have liked an ending where we didn't see what appears to be the death of Steve Trevor, but it was well done to set the final bit for the movie. So excellent job. I give it a 10. Now, we also saw, see if I can bring it up here. Come on. Hate it when it's not doing this. There we go. This is so funny. The other movie we saw was The Mummy. Well, great. It's not moving. There we go. So, all right. The previews, to me, turned out to be, I think, a bit misleading. Or maybe that was just the basis of my expectations. Tom Cruise, he did a good job. This is part of Universal's whole new thing called Dark Universe. So they're trying to capitalize on the excitement, sensationalism that Marvel's got with its Marvel Universe. What frustrates me is why aren't they doing similar with the DC Universe? But no, they wanted to focus on the these classics. So their first one out of the gate is, as the first one I guess of many was The Mummy. Interestingly, we see kind of some similarities to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which was a fun movie all by itself, where they merged a number of characters, quasi-villains, protagonists, antagonists, into a common storyline, as if they were like an X-Men kind of thing. And in the Mummy, we basically see we're introduced to Henry Jekyll, a la Jekyll and Hyde, and we see a little bit of that transformation, although it's not nearly as dramatic as in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, or just about any other Jekyll and Hyde movie you can think of. This movie, I was expecting it to be darker and more dramatic, more serious. It really borrowed heavily from the Brendan Fraser couple of movies as far as the style. It was a little bit more serious than that, but still had a number of bits of humor and things, which was fine, I guess, if that's what they were going for. I was hoping it was going to be more serious, a more serious approach at The Mummy. It was entertaining enough, but because I guess I had different expectations of what the movie was going to be like, I have to say that I was a little bit disappointed. I gave this movie a 7, and apparently y'all did too, because that the receipts are in apparently, and Wonder Woman for its second weekend just wiped the floor with The Mummy, which of course opened this weekend. And I'm not surprised at all. So it was entertaining. It was worth the money, but I actually got a little bit more entertainment out of the Brendan Fraser movies, which I probably, if I were to rate them now, be about an 8. So that's where that stands now. But what is going on? Don't forget that we have a scuba movie coming up, which is awesome. It's going to be a scary movie. I say scary. It's not. It's a natural kind of scary. But it's 47 meters down. It's supposed to open the 16th. So I am excited about that. My wife, not so much. I'm going to be looking at it from the perspective of technical critique, if you will, because I'll be looking at what realistically should they be experiencing, what should happen if you're stuck at 47 meters. Okay, so Ronan, you got back down. Come here. Have a seat and relax. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. Basically, what we can see from the clips, it looks like what happens is there's these two female divers in a cage to, I guess, check out sharks, and the cable breaks, which would be interesting because I don't think that's likely to happen, because I think there's all sorts of safety cables, etc., to prevent that. But anyway. So I'm looking forward to that movie. That should be interesting. I always look forward to dive movies. Hopefully you guys got to check out that Diving into the Unknown that we talked about, shared some bits from a couple episodes ago. I really like that movie, in spite of the fact that it's all subtitled because it's all spoken in foreign language. So that's coming up on the 16th, 47 meters down. So if you're a diver or interested in diving, check that out. I'm probably going to use it in as far as reference similar to the way I used open water, which is a great cautionary tale, and it's a great teachable. What am I looking for? Teaching mechanism, because I can point at where they made mistakes, where the divers made mistakes, where the dive operation made mistakes. I'm able to use that as a way to help other folks understand things you should be aware of, be cautious about when you're diving or planning a dive trip. So, another little bit of personal news, got my car fixed. For those who weren't aware, we, a few months ago, a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, finally traded in our old Mustang in on a Camaro. Went back to Camaro. This will be the third Camaro I've had. And not long after getting it, I get rear-ended by a guy. Now, it wasn't very serious. It was on the base. It wasn't serious, but you know, it's a new car, or new for me. We don't buy any new cars anymore. We just buy them used. But you know, you hate to make that kind of investment to right off the bat get into an accident. So it was minor. I was stopped at an intersection and was looking to turn right, and the guy behind me thought I was going to leave when I moved forward before I did. And so he ended up bumping me, and it kind of took some paint off and kind of crunched the rear bumper cover on the car. And of course, his insurance covered it. No big deal. Car was certainly drivable, but it took a while to get the car actually into the shop to get fixed, because the shop was so backed up. I finally got it in and got it out. So I'm a happy camper now. But now it will show up in the system as having been an accident. But I guess it makes no difference, because I'll be driving it till it doesn't drive anymore anyway, which is typically how I drive. You have vehicles. I get my money's worth out of vehicles. That is absolutely sure. So another little bit of exciting personal news. Tara and I have been asked to sing the national anthem at a ceremony next week, or this coming week, ceremony to dedicate and present the keys of a smart home to a disabled vet. As part of the Gary Sinise Foundation, they have a program called Rise. Matter of fact, let me pull up their web page here so you can take a look. There we go. So here is their website, Gary Sinise Foundation. Of course, I tell you, there are not really any Hollywood performers that I can think of that come close to. There are some that do a lot of work, but that come close to the kind of work that he does for vets. And so this program gets with contractors, etc., benefactors, to build smart homes to help out those who have given a lot in the service of this country. Let me see if I can get their video to play here.
Hey, bud.
Hey, doing, sir?
How are you? Hi.
Overall, the visit, I thought Gary was awesome.
How you doing? Good to see you.
Hi.
It was great, actually interacting with him one-on-one.
When I was here last, you were in the bed, so you're gonna have to show me around yourself now.
About that time, the visit was hijacked by my oldest daughter, and she continued on with the tour.
Each pony has a different cutie mark. She understands animals, and she has a bear in her cottage.
That's their realm. I took them out back over to where the girls' play structure is.
Awesome.
Gary got up there with the girls, which I thought was funny. It's definitely helped me with the aspects of day-to-day tasks in the morning, getting my kids up and ready, down easy, and That right there is very helpful. Yes. Being able to get up and move around and having everything basically everything's at the right level for a day-to-day task. I mean, you don't think 2 and a couple inches, that's no biggie. And that makes a huge difference in where everything is. Girls, show them their rooms. Stacy is a Hello Kitty person, and Jackie is a Minnie Mouse. You want to tell them about the room? Well, my mom took over the tour.
This is where George and I hang out. This is our private space.
Yes, I know it's a lot of stress on them. Helping me and helping my kids with them having their own living space allows them to go someplace, decompress, to kind of reload and get back out there.
What is that?
Cute.
Hey,
That's my speech.
do you want to say your speech?
Yeah, when I was little, my daddy got hurt really badly in Afghanistan. He was in the hospital for a long time. Today, I am very excited to receive my home where my daddy can have more room to play with me and Jackie.
So you can go to the website there to see the whole video and see more about it. It's a great program. I wasn't aware how extensive the work that he does, as far as I wasn't aware of the RISE program, and I think it's a fantastic thing. It just so happened that the Gary Sinise Foundation, the folks that manage the actual ceremonies, events, etc., somehow they got wind of us. And so we'll be driving out to San Antonio next week, or this coming week, to sing the national anthem as part of that event. I'm excited about this. Anytime I can do something for the military and this kind of a thing is just fantastic. Tara and I do national anthem a lot. On the base, as well as in the community for Memorial Day, Veterans Day, those kinds of things, and love doing it. And this is just an opportunity to do something same thing, but in a different place, in a different way, and I just love it. So we're looking forward to that. So that's coming up this week. Now, let's see. Wow, weird stuff going on here. Tech news. Next segment, tech news. Okay, so number of things going on. Microsoft, of course, just a couple of weeks ago, announced the Surface laptop. Of course, they already had the Surface Book, so I'm not sure what their target demographic was for the Surface laptop, because it's somewhere in between the Surface Pro tablet and the Surface Book. I don't understand the point of it, but so and then they also announced at the beginning of E3, they announced the new Xbox One X, which was what Project Scorpio was. So let me pull up. All right, so screen region. So here's the Surface laptop, which looks a lot like the Surface Pro, except it's got the keyboard is not detachable and it's a permanent fixture. So I'm just not seeing, comes in a few different colors, but they're not interchangeable again. So it's all one size fits all. Okay. It is a touchscreen, so it's like what they basically did was made the Surface Pro, but with a not detachable keyboard. So then we have Surface Pro. So then they announced the next generation of Surface Pro. Most of us would have called it a Surface Pro 5. but now they've just called it Surface Pro. So basically, same price range as the previous Surface Pros when they first released, but they've beefed up the specs quite a bit, a little bit more powerful, newer generation, starting with the Core M3, but then they have the i5 and the i7, and they've added more memory because the Surface Pro, I have a Surface Pro 3, has 64 gigs, and I think my wife's Surface Pro 4 does have 128 gigs, but it's expandable because of the card slot that it's got. But I tell you, for the price, I definitely will go with the Surface Pro. I will be upgrading my Surface Pro 3 to the Surface Pro. I just love everything about this in comparison. The only downside is it didn't come with USB-C on it. Now, there are some competing devices, which I'll probably talk about next episode, that are very, very close in design and capability to the new Surface Pro, and actually add some of those things like the USB-C at a lot cheaper price. But, you know, there's obviously going to be some downsides, so I'm looking at what those downsides really are. Now, this has available, it doesn't come with it, but it has available a even more impressive pen, which has like 4,000 levels of sensitivity. So if you're an artist, it allows you to really do some cool things with it. And it is also Bluetooth, so you can configure the buttons to work certain ways that work best for you, etc. So looking forward to getting one of these. Now, they also, as I said, they did announce the Xbox One X, which, oops, there we go. So there it is. That's the Xbox One X. Now, I gotta say, I'm not excited about the Xbox One X. The big things it's bringing to the table is it supports 4K display, video, movies, games, I guess, if there's any games that actually support 4K. And it's got a lot more memory. Processor's more powerful. Up to a terabyte, I guess, of storage. And again, same price, $500 basically, just like we paid for our Xbox One. Now, when we bought the Xbox One, I have to say, we were excited. We're not gamers on PC. I do gaming on I do gaming on a PC. I do not do console gaming. I cannot stand a controller. I just think that is the most stupid way to interact with anything. I know there's a lot of folks out there that really, really like a controller. I hate controllers. And Microsoft is pushing, hey, you can use your controller with a PC. No, why would it be that stupid? I can do more and perform better with a keyboard mouse combination or joystick combination than anybody can on a controller, because it's the things you can set up your keyboard and mouse to do are much better than what limitations you have on a controller, and it's just stupid the way the controller is set up anyway. So I don't do console gaming. If they ever add full keyboard, mouse, joystick control to the Xbox, then it's a different story. But the big reason that we bought the Xbox One was so that we could have, we got with the Kinect, so we could have gesture control of things as well as voice control of things. Sadly, Microsoft over the past 2 years has deprecated the Kinect, and there's no gesture control anymore. It's useless as a gesture controller now. And for voice control, they've moved to Cortana, but Cortana doesn't work nearly as well on the Xbox as it does on my phone or even on the PC. So just big disappointments there with what they're doing with the OS on Xbox. And so giving me... Cortana hears me on my phone. So hearing that they have just, put insane amounts of effort on the processor and memory and storage, while the operating system and its capability still sucks, I'm not impressed. So if y'all want to spend another $500 on another console, be my guest. I'm not excited about it. We don't have a 4K TV. Nothing that comes over satellite is 4K. So I don't see the sense in getting a 4K TV yet. The prices are coming down, but I just don't see the sense in getting a 4K TV. And I certainly don't see getting one just to justify getting an Xbox One X when I am not interested in any games on the Xbox One X. Here's the other thing. I'm a first-person shooter type. I like games where you are the person doing the work, not you're standing behind a character and doing, flips and twists and stuff. That doesn't excite me. That's why I enjoy games like Titanfall. I enjoy games like Elite Dangerous, etc. I don't enjoy the whole. They were talking about, oh, we've got Forza, whatever. I'm like, okay, so you're driving behind a vehicle. You're not actually at the steering wheel. I would be more excited if it were something where I'm sitting behind the wheel and I've got one of the wheel controllers, not the stupid controller like you see that comes with the Xbox or the PlayStation. So, but anyway, that's now been announced. $500 if you want to waste your money again, go for it. So, also a quick reminder: July 15th is the Patty Women's Dive Day. So if you be a woman and you're in an area where they have one of these events, I encourage you to participate. Excuse me, got a little tickle in my throat. If you want to go to patty.com, you can see where an event is happening near you. Okay, so we held auditions last weekend, which is why we didn't have a show. We had auditions last weekend for the Upstagers summer production, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, the musical. It's based on the movie with Steve Martin and Michael Caine, which was a funny movie, and the musical is even funnier, and it's more fun because it's a musical. I don't particularly care for directing shows. I've directed many. I'd rather be in them. If I'm interested enough to be a part of a show, I typically want to be in the show. But there are some occasions where I'm okay directing and I'll just throw myself in a bit part. Usually because we don't have enough people to really fill out the roles, and not to get a big head, but I'm versatile enough that I can pretty much work up into any kind of role that's missing, that we don't have a player for. With this show, it requires quite a bit of requires a pretty significant skill set. There's some dancing, of course, singing, but for a number of the characters, they have to have an accent, and not everybody is great at accents. I kind of have fun with a lot of accents. People that see me coming through the gate at the base, well, they never know what they're going to get when I come through. So anyway, we did finally cast the show, but it was tough. We had auditions on Sunday afternoon and Monday evening, and we just didn't. I barely, maybe, got enough over those 2 nights or 2 days to cast the principal characters, of which there are 6. But this is a large cast. If you look it up on YouTube, you see how big the cast is. There's a number of other lighter roles, but the chorus numbers are huge, and so it requires a number of people who can sing and dance. But then they also have some speaking lines, and they typically have to have an accent. The setting is on the French Riviera, so you hear a lot of French. the main one of the main characters, Lawrence, the sophisticated con man, has to have a he has to do actually a couple of different accents. He has to do, of course, American. He has British. He has German, and even Spanish. It does require it pulls a lot out of actors, and so unfortunately, while we finally did have a follow-up audition on Tuesday, oh no, was it Tuesday? No, Thursday. We finally got some more people involved, and it was pretty good turnout. Still not enough of the guys, but I was able to cast everything. Sadly, the one of the leads, Lawrence, I had to cast myself in. Luckily, we had board members who observed the process, so they made sure that we weren't, that wasn't like, hey, cheating the system. But when you know what you need for the roles, for the characters, and you see what you have to pull from in community theater, you kind of have to make some tough decisions. So, again, I'll be dual hatting as director as well as a role in the show. But my wife will be in it, which is going to be fun. I love acting with my wife in shows, and she's just so super talented. So we got a pretty good cast for the show. We're looking forward to working on that. Of course, that means it's going to get very, 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 very busy for me and for Tara, of course. But because we'll be working on rehearsals just about every night and do set building, things like that on the weekend. So that's going to be challenging working in that with everything else. Which is why we say, if you are in Del Rio and say there's nothing to do, you just aren't trying, because this is going to take up a huge chunk of the summer for us. So make sure if you're in Del Rio when we open the show, the weekends that we have the show, that you stop by and check it out. Okay, so I've got a little story to share with you guys, and that kind of launches into why it's important to take to heart all the things that you learn in your training and not let those go by the wayside. All right, so let me get my glasses on. Stuff when you get older, you have to make up for the fact that you can't see very well. So this was a dive accident that actually, or almost accident that happened. So here's what happened. Steven and Rodolfo were wreck diving in pristine conditions in 60 feet of water. Okay, so that's basic open water certification depth right there. And taking photos to show their dive club and share online. Don't we all? Unexpectedly, Steven signaled up. So he was doing this number. At least we assume he was doing that. Rodolfo signaled, okay, as he moved in close. Then Steven replied, okay. So as a reminder, the okay signal is both a question and an answer. It's kind of like aloha, means hello and goodbye. All right, so Steven replied with the okay. So Rodolfo indicated that the pair should swim to the ascent line that they had followed down. Steven nodded, followed by up. And this time a little bit more urgently. So Rodolfo then asked, okay. And then Steven also followed up with okay, and followed by up. So then they returned to the ascent line and made a controlled descent, but Steven skipped the safety stop. Okay, so they were at 60 feet, and it's a good habit to do that. If you follow your dive tables, it actually starts to require the safety stop once you cross 90 feet or come within 3 pressure groups of any of your maxes. So so they technically could have skipped it, but I always get in the habit of doing the safety stop with students and even with myself. So Steven skipped the safety stop and went right up. So Rodolfo followed up just in case. So they get to the surface, and Steven, who had skipped the stop, basically griped at Rodolfo, why the heck didn't we go straight up? I'm getting water with every breath. And so as it turns out, the issue he was having was he had a torn mouthpiece on his regulator. And so Rodolfo said, "What? I thought you just wanted to end the dive. I didn't know you had a problem because you said you were okay." And Rodolfo's response was, or Stephen's response was, "I meant I was okay to handle it." All right, so here's some things about communication. They clearly had not gone over their signals, their communication prior to doing the dive. It's always important to have that discussion. Make sure you understand what signals you're going to use. I go, of course, as part of the course, I go over all the hand signals that I need to go over with the students, and I don't lump them all at once. I teach them the basic ones. Okay, go up, go down. I've got something wrong. I go over the basics with them, and then I add more signals as we go along because I'm doing more things that may require a specific hand signal. So if you've had your training, then the only thing you really need to make sure you do is get in the habit of refreshing all of your skill sets, including your hand signals. So when you're diving with somebody, whether they're new or somebody you've been diving with for some time, go over those hand signals. So for instance, again, basic stuff. Let me switch back to the other camera. So basic stuff. So okay is both a question and an answer. If you're going to go up, don't use this for okay. This is going up and this is going down. Then you've got which way do you want to go? So you go left or right. Then if you're having an issue, as Stephen was in here, when you're trying to communicate to your buddy, you need to say, "Hey, I've got a problem." And it's just a simple waggling of your hand. And then you point to where the problem is. In his case, he should have gone this, then pointed it at the regulator. Now, here's another thing that kind of bothered me with this scenario. What happened to his safe second, his alternate air source? When you're diving, you are diving with a primary regulator, and then you're diving with one that's a secondary. Typically, it's on a longer hose, and it's kept in the triangle between your chin and your rib cage. So rather than bust the dive, rather than almost get to a panic state, why in the heck didn't he switch to his alternate? And then that would buy him time breathing regularly to check out what's going on. He would have noticed he had a torn mouthpiece on the regulator. By the way, what do you do if you have a torn mouthpiece in your regulator? When you get to the surface, you use your Save-A-Dive kit. Most Save-A-Dive kits include a fin strap, but make sure it's a fin strap for your type of fins, and a spare inexpensive mouthpiece. It may not be the really highfalutin fancy like C-Cure like what Tara and I use, but I guarantee you if that's the only thing stopping me from diving, I'll dive with a cheap mouthpiece. I've got little zip ties and I've got a spare mouthpiece in my Save-A-Dive kit. So if either Tara or I run into an issue where it pops off or just tears or whatever problem we have, we can swap it out. No big deal. So in addition to not boned up on their hand signals, they made the mistake of not having presence of mind to use the skill set. If you have a problem with your primary, you switch to your alternate. Now, thankfully, he wasn't having an issue with actually free-flowing regulator, which would be enough to stop the dive. But a torn mouthpiece, if you have your alternate, that's no reason to stop the dive. By the way, you could always pull the bad mouthpiece off and just bite onto the actual hard plastic opening of the regulator and breathe through that. Is it comfortable? No. Does it work? Absolutely. Okay. So, again, some additional signals. If you are trying to get their attention, one of the signals you can use is watch me. So watch me. If you're trying to tell somebody to stick with their dive buddy, you do this, stick together. If you're saying, I'm going to follow or lead and you follow, you do this. You indicate a direction like this. If you're low on air, out of air, if you want the person's safe second, you indicate that. But you can also just to your chest say, hey, come here. If they're moving too fast or too excited, you can say slow down. This does not mean go down. This means slow down. And then, of course, you got stop, either this or this. Again, reviewing those hand signals to indicate what's going on. Okay? If somebody starts to breathe a little bit too fast or heavily, you can just simply, let's see if I can switch cameras. If you do this, it's like breathe, breathe, slowly breathe. It's like slow down, breathe, breathe. Again, some basic signals. If you're not sure if you are going to do a safety stop, you can say 3-minute safety stop right here. So you just show a little 3 stop. Okay, 3-minute safety stop. Just some basic hand signals. Go back over. Anticipate the kinds of problems that you might run into on a dive and have that discussion. It's important to make sure that there are no mistakes that could cause injury or fatality. Most frequently, those are caused by running out of air because somebody wasn't paying attention to their air. But if you ask them, or this way, a couple of signals that you can do this, how much air do you have? Then they should be checking frequently. You should be checking frequently and be able to report that to your dive buddy. But it's important to review those hand signals so that you don't run into any problems later. It's even more critical if you're diving internationally, because let's face it, you think there's issues with vocal communication being a challenge when there's a language barrier. There could be understandings of hand signals that are a little bit different internationally. Now, these are generally the same everywhere, but you don't know for sure what the person you're diving with might have experienced. So if you're diving in the Caribbean, if you're diving over in Europe or something like that, there's a good chance you're going to be diving with some people, and you may actually be buddied up with somebody who doesn't speak your language or doesn't speak it well. So make sure that you have that conversation of what the hand signals that you're going to agree to use are. Anticipate worst case scenarios so that those are understood in the heat of the moment, because we get myopic when we're starting to run into a problem. Our problem solving skills start to suffer. So we need to make sure that we're paying close attention to what the other person's saying, and slow down in your communication. Be very, very purposeful in your communication. I can't stress enough that just as people can speak in such a way that the language is slurred or it's just lazy enunciation. I'm sorry, what did you say? Can you say that again? What was that? The same thing can happen with hand signals, because let's face it, you're underwater. Visibility, even at its best, is going to change what you see and reduce the acuity by which you can recognize what you're seeing. So you have to make sure that those motions are exaggerated enough so that they can be understood by the other person, especially if there's any kind of distance. Now, you should be keeping close to your buddy, right? You should be sticking close by. So they literally can be in touching distance of you. But if something happens and you get more distance away, those hand signals are even more critical over distance. When using the acting analogy, when I'm working with actors, I stress exaggeration and enunciation. You may think it's understandable to the person that you're acting across on a scene, but you've got an audience out in the distance that can't hear, even if you're on microphones. you have to make sure your diction is very, very clear so they don't misunderstand what you're saying. And then similarly, when you do movements or expressions, you may think you're doing a big motion on stage and it looks very, very insignificant off stage. So be more expressive. The same thing is necessary with hand signals. It's kind of, you can't do this. You need to do this. If I'm having, if I want to make sure I've got your attention, I'm going to do this. If I'm trying to say there's a boat, go to the boat or look for the boat. I'm going to make sure that you see the signal in front of me. So be purposeful and don't be subtle about your gestures. Review them frequently and make sure you have that conversation as part of spinning up for the dive so that there aren't any issues that you might run into, like in the example of this incident. Okay, real quickly, dive conditions at Lake Amistad have not really improved any. Again, temperatures slowly warming up. It's about 72. Visibility is, again, about 10 feet. Matter of fact, as a review, let me pull up the video from last week. So this is just an idea what the visibility is like at Lake Amistad right now. If you hear in the background, you can hear like a croaking. Those are carp. So anyway, that's an idea of what the visibility is like right now. Because we just rain and wind and it's just been crazy. And in fact, today was supposed to be perfectly sunny, and it was cloudy most of the day. It didn't open up until late in the afternoon, and it was very windy today too. So that's what you can expect, and then the temperature drops quite a bit as you get deeper. You get down to 60 feet. It drops into the 60s as far as the temps. All right, as we wind down here, let me hit some administrivia. There we go. Okay, let's see. We may have to skip the dive club meeting this month because of rehearsals. I'm still working on the schedule for the rehearsals. Again, director's job is never done. I've got to design the sets. I've got to work with the costumer on what costumes we want to go with, and of course then teach everybody the music. Thankfully, we have a choreographer to work on the actual dance. Then I've got to learn lines, work with the music, etc. Dive classes, June 22nd through the 25th, July 27th through the 30th, August 24th through the 27th, September 28th through October 1st. And, of course, our show dates for Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, the musical, are August 4th, 5th, 11th, and 12th, just before school comes back into session. So if you find yourself in the Del Rio area and you want to check out some really great live entertainment, I cannot encourage you enough that you grab some folks, grab a significant other, and come out to the Paul Pogue Theater on the August 4th, 5th, 11th, or 12th and check out Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, the musical. We always try to do a plug for a Pet's Wish, which is our local pet rescue. Katrina desperately needs help and funding to help pay for food and cleaning supplies and medical supplies for animals that are under treatment. She takes on a Herculean job of, speaking of a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. Her heart is absolutely huge for taking care of all these animals. And while we definitely thank all the folks who are fosters, and we're fosters as a matter of fact, there's so many animals that are there that are people abandon, abuse, neglect, and that she and the volunteers help rescue. So if you can find it in your heart to donate time or money, please check them out. Just go out on Facebook, look for A Pet's Wish. They also have a website. and they have a PayPal account so you can donate money to them. Check them out, A Pet's Wish. They desperately need your help. If you'd like to keep up with what's going on in the dive community here, just go to delriodiveclub.com, and also check us out on Facebook, which, of course, if you're watching the show live, you're on our Facebook page. So, but anyway, that's Facebook.com/Del Rio Dive Club. And if you want to send us a message here at the show, just send it to Skype via look for TGWD, which stands for This Guy Who Dives. And of course, if you would like to converse with me directly, send me an email at Robert. Just send it to robert.wade@cetifox.net, or you can follow me on the Twitter. Just look for Robert CFP, and you follow me, I'll follow you. Unless you're really annoying, then I may not follow you. But so anyway, more to come as we start working on the show. I'll probably start showing some pictures from rehearsals, that kind of thing, as we go. As I get more diving in, show some more video of that as well. Have some folks who were going on a trip to Australia, so I'm hoping to get some shots, video that guy's going to take as part of that. That'd be great to show that. Again, that's on our bucket list of places that we want to go diving. So, all right, that is all we have for tonight. I think it's the first time in literally years that I've actually gotten this show done by 9 o'clock. But we appreciate you checking out the show. We appreciate your comments. Appreciate you watching on YouTube later after we upload it, and sharing with us, and spread the word. We love to hear people commenting on the show or participating. If you are in the Del Rio area, you can certainly join us as a guest host, and we can talk about things. As a matter of fact, I've got a friend of mine, Mike Steed, who wants to talk about his local detail business. Talk about a hardworking guy. And just kind of share some things of his experience, what he works on, and how he got into it, and that kind of thing. Just a little bit of a local interest kind of thing. So that pretty much does it for today, and we hope you enjoyed yourself, and we will see you next time on another episode of This Guy Who Dives. See ya.